Ghislaine was actually in this episode, well, at least in spirit. I was super duper happy to see her name pop up, but like any great episode of Mushoku Tensei, this one is actually very Eris heavy, and we've got a ton to break down for her character, including a really shocking but nice to see aspect changing with her character. Let's jump right into it, nya. So, starting right off, in this episode, we're introduced to a couple of side characters, Minatona and Tersina. They were in the last episodes a little bit, but in this episode, the relationship with Eris really takes the forefront. I loved this episode because through Tona and Tersina, we get a lot of development for Eris. One aspect I really like is that Eris seems to enjoy teaching Tona how to use the sword, and through that, we kind of learn that Eris most likely has found her calling in teaching. This is interesting because earlier on in the series, we know that Eris, well, she wasn't about that life. But through hard work and looking up to people like Ghislaine and even Rudy, she wants to learn more, but as well share that knowledge. This fits pretty well with her character as it stands now, as we know that Eris is a very bright and bubbly girl who is excited to meet new people and take on new experiences, but as well share those experiences and knowledge with others. In ways, Eris is like the sunshine and beating heart of Mushoku Tensei. You can always count on her wide-eyed innocence to bring up the mood. I think as well you can point to even small touches like Eris and the Beast Children speaking broken versions of their language at the beginning of the episode, and by the end, improving their speaking and are able to form more coherent sentences. I mean, that stuff is just incredible. It's these flourishes that make Mushoku Tensei so good when it's good, because on one hand, they made up an entire language for this show, but on the other hand, you have it mean something in this world beyond it being, you know, just another language. How many times do you see this in shows? Not often. Plus, they tied it into Eris's character as she's now more understanding of those around her and has shed that self-arrogance. The Eris of before would probably demand that those beast children speak her language or get a translator. This Eris is much more mature than that. This goes doubly for her character and development as well, as there is a line from Rudy that I think you all should really take notice of. This episode featured a massive character development for Eris because she's now able to control her temper. This is because during the scene where Eris and Tona fight, Rudy makes a comment about Eris holding back. Now think about this for a moment. Based on what we know, Eris has a hair-trigger temper, and when she gets angry, she flies off the handle. The Eris of old wouldn't hold back on Tona. She would most likely decimate her. This new Eris, however, even under duress and being beaten up by a tiny cat girl, has the wherewithal to hold back and not actually hurt her, or in other words, control her temper. Needless to say, we love Eris around here at the SeaTactics. We stan Eris. Then there is the most intriguing aspect of this episode, the Ghislaine that we never knew. It turns out that the father of Minatona is actually Ghislaine's brother. He gives insight into who she was before we knew her, and the picture that he paints is actually much different from the Ghislaine that we know and love. Our Ghislaine is a stoic badass who is a brilliant master to Eris, and she does whatever possible to survive and protect those she cares about. Their Ghislaine was rebellious and did something unfathomable in refusing to not guard the forest they live in and the sacred beast. It's so bad that her brother thinks of Ghislaine as a disgrace. With this being actually the first mention of Ghislaine in the series since she disappeared, I was on the edge of my seat for this. I have a feeling much like how in 86 we're heating up for Vladilena returning, we're now getting more accustomed once again to the presence of Ghislaine because, hey, she's probably coming back soon. Though what I find interesting is her brother is even surprised that Rudy has taught Ghislaine magic and many other things like reading and writing. Picture this for a moment. Maybe better yet, imagine you're Ghislaine's brother and hearing about your sister, who was a top-tier shithead, turn into this well-respected woman. You almost can't believe it. And on top of that, it likely makes you regret what could have been. This is exactly what he does as he regrets not trying to help Ghislaine, and since he can't change the past, it must hurt even more for him to realize how much of a gem Ghislaine has turned into, and how that could have been her lest that mysterious swordsman didn't take her away, and he put more energy into helping her. And I also don't blame him either. She seemed like a lot to handle and needed the best that he could at the time. And hey, that's all anyone can ask of you, is to try as hard as possible, right? Though, as a little bit of a side note, I do find it adorable that Minotona and Tersna wanted to learn about Aunt Ghislaine. It shows that, to me, there is still a home there for her despite what her brother said, and that is through the next generation. I wouldn't be surprised at some point, wherever Ghislaine may be, that she actually returns to her small village hidden in the leaf. I just made a Naruto joke. It would be a beautiful way to round out that story and as well give a happy end to a big part of Ghislaine's story and mystique. Speaking of, Minotona and Tersna are absolutely adorable. They're even more adorable with Eris too, who, as an aside, holy crap, Eris is swole, dude. She lifts. You can tell Eris, she lifts. So we do have to talk about and theorize on what exactly the 7 great powers are. We of course know that they are the 7 strongest fighters in the world, and even Ruijerd, who, when was younger, he dreamed of being one. That is how ubiquitous this legend is in Mushoku Tensei's world. They consist of, if you didn't know, technique, dragon, battle, demon, death, sword, and North gods. There is even a rumor going around that people don't even know if the top 4 gods are still alive. My theory is that the next arc for Mushoku Tensei will be following the story of these gods and maybe even meeting them too. If this is to be the case, that they do meet, I wonder if they'll be evil and have to fight, or good and help dead end. Tell me what you guys think about this down in the comments below if you've gotten this far in the video. Speaking of, I ain't got nothing else to talk about. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my video, you may enjoy my breakdown of Eris's character from episode 12 that lots of people really seem to enjoy.